Today, I'm talking with JT Frangiosa from Pennsylvania, who is with Sanguine Studios that just released Beat the Machine Rebooted. JT, you want to tell us about your game?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is JT Frangiosa. I'm the owner of Sanguine Studios. I've been working on Beat the Machine Rebooted now for the last couple of years. We are a top-down arcade shooter that is now available on both Steam and Xbox, both Series X and Xbox One. We are a top-down arcade shooter where you get to choose your way how to play with a variety of different skills located on our skill tree. And the one thing we wanted to do was to modernize the old arcade classics and make them feel modern for the younger generation to play, but nostalgic for the older generation to enjoy.
Were there any other games that influenced you in making this, or how did you come up with the idea?
So I came up with the idea, so I'm a big Sly Cooper fan. So one of the things that I enjoyed about the series was the hackathon mini games that you could play throughout the series. So I wanted to kind of expand on that and build a full-fledged game off of the mini game idea. I also grew up playing Centipede, Pac-Man, and I grew up with a Sega Genesis in my house. So I wanted to make something that kind of had those retro graphics, but really just modernized and that great top-down shooter feel. When I grew up with the controller, twin stick wasn't exactly a thing yet. It was all like D-pad and, ABC for the Genesis. PlayStation 1, when I had it, our controller didn't have analog sticks. We didn't get that till later on. So I wanted to make something that was really, using the analog sticks and using the controller to its entire feel.
Was this your first game that you made?
Yeah, so Beat the Machine is my first game. So it actually started as a college project, and I built it out for a portfolio piece along with a very large team of my college peers. And after we had graduated, I put the project away for about 12 to 18 months and focused on, going into the industry, working for a AAA company. And I decided to reopen the project afterward, after what happened in 2020, kind of naming it without naming it. So I decided to take a whole different career life path and decided to go indie and to take my original college idea and to try to make it into a indie studio and a full-fledged game.
Interesting. So you finished the game all by yourself?
So originally as a college project, there was 15 of us when we started. And it was kind of built out for a portfolio piece. So it was really had a lot of rough edges, didn't really have that polished feel that you would feel in a game that you would launch. So we built this as a portfolio piece. When I reopened the studio, I actually reached out to about 5 to 6 of people that worked on the project and also an additional person who wasn't on. So it was about a team of 6 of us at the end who really finished out the game and made why we have rebooted at the end of the tag. So Beat the Machine was the college project, and then the rebooted is to kind of show like, hey, we learned from our mistakes of what we did wrong with the original, and the rebooted is now like, this is the game.
So are all of these people part of your studio?
Yes.
How big is the studio then total?
So we are 6 people right now.
And this is what you're doing full time?
So for others, no. For me, yes. I also do work part-time on the side, but this is pretty much my full-time gig. So I'm putting in, 40, sometimes 45 hours a week. So I treat this as like my full-time job. But I also work part-time as a server, One of the things is when you kind of have a small studio, you don't really get the social aspect a lot. So for me, I want to kind of go out, be able to socialize with the local community, help out where I can.
Are you still actively putting more work and content into the game, or what's the status of it now?
Absolutely. So we launched on Xbox December 4th, and we now have Arsenal, which is our new update that's going to be coming out in about 3 to 4 weeks. So Arsenal is basically taking the skill tree and we're adding a new component to it, which is going to be allowing you to switch your default weapon. And now our entire skill tree will work with this new weapon system. So it essentially, adds almost double the playtime to the game, if not more. And we thought as well, we're going to add some more skills into the skill tree just to offer even more variety. Go back, we've remastered a few of the soundtracks as well. So Arsenal is really going to come in as our first major update to the game.
Well, you said you had spent some time in the game industry. What were you doing there?
So basically, I had worked on the original game as a portfolio piece, and then what I wanted to do was I wanted to go into AAA. So I kept applying for all different positions, different companies. So sometimes the interview process can be 3-4 months doing all that stuff. Unfortunately, I would make it very far into the process, and then right at the very end, they would say, "Hey, actually, we ended up going with the other candidate. They had somebody that had more experience, was, more closer to the area, all that stuff." So I took all those kind of denials as a way to say, "Hey, I'm going to improve my craft. I'm going to work on myself." And that's kind of what led me to start this. So my industry experience is none as of yet. So I'm hoping that either this kind of turns into a full studio to where, we are the next AAA company would be a dream. Or, that, hey, maybe after the, we go indie, maybe I do end up going into AAA, or, we maybe merge with another company.
So what roles do you fill when it comes to the building of the game?
So I worked on the programming of the skill tree, and I did all the music and sound effects for the game.
Very cool. I personally have found a lot of similarities between music and programming. Have you noticed anything like that yourself?
A little bit here and there. So I also use an audio program that kind of does a lot of that music and programming stuff too. Are you familiar with Wise at all?
Well, yes.
Yeah. So we use Wise for pretty much all of our I'm going to call it audio organization, but it's just a very intuitive tool. So for me, I feel like a lot of the ways to get audio to work is actually building it into your programming. So to me, it's like music, you kind of need the programming for it to work in your game, especially if you're using different layers. You want certain layers to turn on throughout the level. Or for us, with our skill tree, you need to have audio at certain points during your skill. So if there's a delay on the sound where one of our abilities is engine burst, it's after a 1 second delay, it goes off. Well, you got to make sure that timing's right, because if the timing's even a little bit off, it makes that burst explosion sound really faint and not enjoyable. It just kind of makes it sound very lackluster. So timing's everything. So to me, the programming music part of it, if you don't combine them together, it can really make your game kind of off-putting. So making sure that both in tandem just helps everything sound so much better.
What about the game engine that you're using?
So we use Unity. So when we were all in college, we all learned Unity. So for us, that's what the original project was built in. We had talks for a little bit if we wanted to move it to Unreal. But at the end of the day, we kind of already had our entire foundation pretty much built out in Unity. So we said, maybe that part we don't change. We all know it. It's what we're familiar with. So
personally, I find Unity a little bit more intuitive to use myself.
I think so too. I have to agree with you on that.
How about the design of the game? Did you start with something like a game design document, or how did that evolve?
So the original design for the game started out with a 28-page design document that I wrote up when I was a freshman in college. And I kind of just put it off for 3 years, did nothing with it. Then when I became a senior and this project began, I had handed off to the person who I entrusted to become the lead designer for the project. And I said, here, just do whatever you want with it. Rip it apart, add, take away. You've got full control. Do what you need. And he came back to me with 7 of the 28 pages. He removed 75% of it and said, this is the foundation. And there's 1 page in here that we're going to make this entire game around. And it was a skill tree concept that I had. And at the time it was, you could just put in things okay, I want to increase the ammunition of weapon 1. I want to increase my rate of fire. I want to move faster. It was very stat based. There was nothing crazy every so many seconds, I want to, have this burst fire where it shoots an explosion that has this big area effect. We had none of that yet. And he said, why don't we just build a full fun skill tree with actual different activated abilities and different passive abilities, and just have players go nuts and choose what they want. So that's kind of where this whole idea started.
Is it a game where you just try and go as far as you can and get a high score, or is there a final boss at the end?
So I'll give kind of the bare bones story of the game. So the idea is that this evildoer, Tom, wants control of the inside of a computer system. And so to do it, there is one last remaining sector, and you are defending it and trying to defeat him. So Tom, who is the final boss of the game, is known for having these really bad creations. They're very good at doing only one thing. So every enemy that you fight has one specific task that it does, whether that is to try to collide with you, to try to knock you off the stage, to just try to shoot you from a far distance. They're all of his creations. And throughout the game, you'll also fight 5 of the bosses that were also developed by him as well.
Are you guys self-publishing the game, or are you working with a publisher?
So we are completely self-published. So one of the things when I wanted to go indie was I wanted to go full indie. So we did have a few publishing offers come our way, but I wanted to keep it all in-house. Didn't want to deal with any external sources whatsoever for publishing. I wanted to have full design control. Whatever updates we want to launch, I want to make sure that that is through us. I don't want it to be decided by somebody else. So if me and the team decide that that's not what we want to do, and we want to either work on a new project or we want to work on creating a bunch of levels to launch in the future, that we're just able to do what we want.
Now, did you fund everything personally too, or did you do a Kickstarter or anything?
So I am pretty much 100% self-funded. We did have a couple of small donations when we first started from like friends and family who wanted to kind of see us succeed. But that's pretty much about it. Other than that, we're self-funded. I think other than maybe a couple $100, we're pretty much all self-funded.
Releasing on any big platform to me is a huge accomplishment. What was it like going through the process of getting on Xbox and going through those hurdles?
So it was pretty surreal for us. When I had done the application to become ID at Xbox, I had sent it in, and our game was like kind of polished, but it wasn't like 100% there because we weren't done with it at the time. But I wanted to make sure that at least like what we had felt good, and we had like a good trailer. The gameplay was fun. You could understand what was going on, but it didn't have that like, post-processing polish and, hours and hours of testing yet. And I never expected to get accepted. I quite honestly thought that we were going to get denied and go back to the drawing board. So to me, that whole experience was just so surreal. Never expected to come out on a console. It was my dream of, making a game to come out on console for as long as I could, started developing this, because having a twin stick, being on a system where you can actually use the controller that's got both analog sticks. So to me, it's a surreal experience, and I'm thankful every day that I can say, hey, my game's on Xbox. I think that is the coolest thing.
Aside from all the approvals and everything, were there any technical challenges that you faced?
Oh, so many. For a lot of us, this was our first game. So, we learned everything either on our own or through tutorials that we could find, or from asking peers, professors, people we knew. So the entire thing was a learning process. And I think for us, we had 2 big things that we handled, which was how to save our data. Even on Steam for us was just very difficult because there's so much data that we have in our skill tree that we had to save everything manually to a JSON file. So even learning just how to manually save stuff to a JSON file was technically difficult for us because we'd never dealt with that before. All the stuff we had learned in college was just in the Unity engine. So, there's not exactly like a telltale guide of here's how to save your data and, here's how you can pull all of it and grab what you need. And with us having different game modes too, not only are we saving per save file, we're also saving what difficulty you select as well, which can change a lot for our type of game too.
Before you released, did you have many people play testing it, and did you get a lot of feedback? And also now that it's released, have you been getting feedback that you've been incorporating?
Yeah, so a lot of the feedback, so we've been getting feedback throughout the years. A lot of the feedback that we've gotten is our game's difficult. It's not a game that you can sit down and anybody can pick it up. I wish it was. We're not quite there yet. Our casual mode, I want to say, is like this close. The first couple levels can be a little rough for somebody not used to the genre or somebody that's never played a twin stick before. It takes time to pick up this kind of game if you're not used to it. So that's kind of a lot of the, I don't want to say complaints because they're not really complaints, but that's a lot of feedback that we've gotten. And over the years, we've been trying to slowly fix that difficulty curve to be able to allow more people to access our game and to have fun with it. So that's even something we're still dealing with today. And part of the thing that we're going to be changing with Arsenal, and this will sort of be the first thing that the internet hears about it, is our third row that you can choose from in the power tree is all different weapon upgrades that you can normally grab. Well, all of that is now available directly from level 1. You no longer have to earn 4 skill points and make it to boss number 1. So by being able to pick that up a lot earlier, you're going to grab onto our game quicker. It's going to be a little easier to get through World 1. It's going to solve a lot of that issue. But overall, playtester-wise, I want to say that over the history of our game, we've probably had close to 300 or 400 playtesters. So a lot of different people throwing in their ideas and chiming in, which has been great in the success of our game, because we tell people, like, roast us, like, go full force. Like, I don't care if you rage at us in our Google Doc, like, have fun and tell me what you think is wrong, because if you're 100% honest with us, we can make the game as good as we can.
Do you have tutorials in the game, and have you had to evolve those?
So our first tutorial, which we launched in 2023 as like a beta, was pretty bad, because it basically just taught you how to move, shoot, and what a couple of the enemies did, and that was about it. But it never really went into depth about like how to use different active skills, how to use different passive skills, and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of reading when it comes to our skill tree. So actually, it's better than what it was. So we have a new tutorial that teaches you how to use active abilities, because there's 2 different kinds. So there's one where you actually use it with your cursor and you actually place it where your cursor is. But there are also some that's just like the activation of a button and it just happens around you. But when you're using a twin stick controller, you don't really have that precise aim. So there's actually a targeting cursor that you can move with the right analog stick, and then you press the confirm button and that's where it'll drop. But it doesn't stop you from moving and shooting during that time. So you can still move and shoot and also move this cursor around, which is just something that's, I think it's more unique to our game of the top-down shooters. So we try to make it as intuitive as possible. And then our new update, we're actually going to have video previews of every single skill in the game so that you know exactly what it does by a visual thing. So on top of the built-in tutorial, you'll now also have video demonstrations of everything. So it's going to make everything easier by tenfold, if not more.
Do you think the tutorials will help with some of that challenge, or is the game just challenging mechanically?
I think the tutorial helps with some of it, but it doesn't solve it all. I would say the tutorial teaches you like 80% of what you need, and the other 20% involves, probably going to watch some of these video demonstrations, and you have to think a little bit because there's so many different combinations. So to provide an example, there's an ability in our game, it's called Wave Reflections. And what it does is it shoots 5 bullets instead of 1. Okay, well, if 3 of those bullets hits an enemy, it actually counts for 3 stacks when you combine it with System Restore, which says every attack grants 1 hit. So now by grabbing this ability called Wave Reflections, now you've got the chance to hit 5 bullets per attack to stack that quicker. So, but if you don't kind of read and think about that right away, you might not think to put those 2 skills together.
Was there any ability that was particularly challenging technically, or any ability that you just had to totally scrap?
There's actually a couple. So the most difficult one, programming-wise, was Rocket Mayhem. So what it does is it shoots auto-targeting rockets at the nearest unit to you. And so when we were originally doing that, we had to, one, be able to find every enemy that's on the field, and then draw distance to each one to be able to shoot those rockets at everything. And we were originally coming up with it. We had no idea how to do it. And then one ability was so technically challenging on how we wanted it to work, we scrapped it, which was we had a chain lightning effect, and we called it Vertigo. And so what would happen is you would shoot an electric beam that would bounce between units, but if it had no other target, it would bounce back to the original and would kind of keep going back and forth like a pinball until one of the units died. Unfortunately, just from a technical stance, to constantly do that with this ability that kept going off, it proved to be too taxing, and so we scrapped it. But even just to build it and make it not buggy was near impossible, so we scrapped the whole thing.
Are you guys making all of the assets in-house, or do you pick up anything from a marketplace or other contractors?
So everything other than a couple of visual effects has been made in-house. We purchased a visual effect pack so that we could learn how they were built from the ground up. And so we kind of used them as like our prototyping system. So we bought a commercial license for that. So that way there's no interference. And then we essentially just kind of build up from the groundwork so that we know how to use it. I think we've only done that for a couple of bullet effects, though. A lot of the other visual effects are just built from the ground up. We're also using Unity 5, so we don't have URP or HDRP, so we're using all old school shaders and stuff. So even we've made some of our own custom shaders as well.
When you're working with half a dozen people, how do you organize tasks and collaborate and communicate? Do you use any tools there?
So when we first started, we were pretty much everything in Discord. So we had our own Discord server, separated it into chats. That was how we started things. Then we moved to Slack for a little while. Slack was a pretty good tool. But overall, we actually found it to be more confusing because then we had to open this entirely separate program when we're already in Discord for our meetings anyway. So I think we used Slack for about, I'm going to say 7 months, 8 months. We ended up going back to Discord. But yeah, Discord, Google Drive, GitHub, that's been kind of the majority of everything. We have source control, so we use Plastic to kind of stay on top of things. So we make sure that we're not editing the same scene. So we always try to, keep a working task of, okay, who's working on what scene so we don't have any overlaps. And you'll always see kind of like a currently working that we have on, and, it'll say, JT is currently working on level 22. Okay, Eric is currently working on level 19. So we know not to overlap each other, and then we swap when that stuff's pushed on Plastic.
How do you deal with the marketing aspect, and does Xbox or Steam help with any of that?
So the marketing aspect for us, we have been kind of reaching out to, obviously, individual creators, individual influencers. We always have people that reach out to us too that are interested in doing either collaborations. They would like to, talk about us on TikTok. They want to do an interview similar to something that we're doing. We've also run advertisements through Google. We've done them through Vibe, which is a TV marketing company that runs through different streaming networks. We've done Instagram ads, TikTok ads, X or Twitter ads, depending on just when, because we used Twitter before it was X too. But yeah, I think that's kind of the majority of the marketing we do. Even Xbox help in certain ways. I can't get too into it just because I don't want to break NDAs, but there are certain things that they do to assist and a lot of resources that they provide for assistance. So one thing that, I can share is like, if you're looking to use their logos, you got to make sure that they're used in the appropriate way for advertising. So there's all different guidelines and stuff that you have to adhere to.
Out of all those marketing and advertising things you mentioned, is there anything that you found has been the most effective?
So I would say there's kind of a tier list in a way. So for like the S tier is obviously anything that you can get directly from the platform that you're on. So if you're on Xbox, you're using an Xbox ad, it's going to be the best way. Same with Steam, same with Switch or PlayStation, I'm sure. Underneath is kind of your social medias, but you need to create funny videos. It's not about just being informational. You have to actually have something that's going to stick with people. If you post, very informative stuff, which we tend to do, it doesn't get as many hits as the funny stuff and try to be relatable with, today's memes or just current events in general. So you have to find your way to be funny and just kind of have that little bit of sense of humor. And sometimes you got to be really quick because, something goes viral. It's only going to stay viral for a couple of hours and then it's kind of left in the dust. You got to think quick on your feet. So there's a possibility that, on Thursday morning, there was this meme going on and, you might have been asleep for it. Time's lost. So you got to really stay on top of everything as you can. And then kind of the B tier is what I'm going to call just like informational ads. So if you're posting like, hey, here's our new thing that we updated and it now has 30 range instead of 15. Well, not many people know unless they're playing. So that's kind of a way to keep your current player base involved, but it doesn't really help bring in new people. So I would kind of say that's kind of like the little tier list. And trailers are hit and miss. When you come out with a video of any kind, it really just depends if you can grab the user's attention in 10 to 12 seconds. If you can, the video is going to do well. If you can't, it's just tough. Sometimes you might just have something great, and you might not have edited it right away in the beginning correctly, and it just doesn't become a hit on that YouTube short. So it's very hit or miss. So I always say to people, if you put out a trailer and you didn't get the success you wanted, go back, make a couple edits, and relaunch it, and see if it does better after you make a couple changes. Even if it gets 30 or 40 more views, it's information that you're learning on how to get into that algorithm.
Are you making use of any AI throughout any of the process, from debugging to crafting social posts or anything?
So when we first started, and I guess even maybe 50 to 60% of the way through, AI wasn't really out yet. So when AI was kind of like big for us, we had a lot of like major content done. So my idea was, I wonder if we can use AI to make new skills. It's just kind of curious. Tried a couple different prompts and just wanted to see what I would get out of it. And some of the responses from AI were hysterical, like they weren't even anywhere near what we had. And sometimes AI just tried to rewrite what I had already had in the game and tried to plagiarize me, which was even funnier. I never really used AI to debug, although I could see it being very useful for potentially the next project we work on, or if we decide to add even more content. I could definitely see that being something that's useful. But no, I don't really think we've used AI. I know I definitely have not. So it's about as much as I've done with AI. I'm trying to just think if there's anything else. Social posts, not really. No.
Past the Arsenal expansion, are you thinking about any other projects past that already?
So we always have, I call it like a backup plan of, things I want to do for either different projects or current. And we've got kind of a backlog of stuff, but it always depends on what do our player base want. So if the player base comes to us and says, hey, we love the Arsenal, it's great, we want more levels now. Okay, well, that's something we got to sit down and consider. Okay, are we willing to come out with a level expansion? But our player base might say, hey, you know what? We're really loving this alternate game mode of survival. Can you make us a new survival map? That's something we can go to the drawing board for, and we've got a couple of concepts on the side and stuff that we've never used or ideas that we haven't had, some that have failed. We put one through playtesting. It was an escort mission where you had to escort a fuel canister to the end. And the whole idea is that the fuel canister can only take so much damage before it explodes. Was a complete fail. But we have other ideas that we haven't necessarily put through the playtesting things that are off to the side. And as we kind of start to grow, we can kind of have those conversations with our community and say, hey, here's some ideas. What excites you? What is something that you'd like to see? But we're also working on a second project off to the side as a new product that we want to start working on. Getting a Steam page out for that is definitely our first goal. Going kind of same genre, kind of not, but we're now going more toward third-person point of view. So it's going to be more of a third-person shooter. I won't go into too much details, but a little tease is if you've played our survival mode and you like our survival mode, I think you'll end up liking the new project we're working on.
Sounds exciting. Well, let's see. Is there, where should people go if they want to follow your studio and your games?
So for us, one of the things we are always posting on socials, visit our Twitter page. If you're not a Twitter user, we like to post on Instagram too. We try to make them as 50-50 as possible. So if there's something we post on Twitter, we almost do an equal and exact post on Instagram. It just keeps people involved. Follow us on TikTok and YouTube to kind of get all the video updates from us. But if you want the latest news, we always tell people to join our Discord. So our Discord is where to come if you want to keep up to date, like on the hour of what's going on with us. Also, our Discord can offer some helpful advice. So if you are stuck in a level somewhere, we've got people from QA to fans to even people that like to speedrun that will be more than willing to help you out. Even sometimes us as devs, we love to chime in too. And with us having such a big skill tree, you might have just found a new combination that we don't even know about yet. So we'd love to hear it.
Awesome. Well, JT, I really appreciate it. It's been great learning about your studio and your game, and I wish you the best of luck with the game.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John, for having me. Really appreciate it. We will be staying up to date with all the other studios here. And thank you again for having me. Really appreciate it.